everyone. I'm welcoming Mark Schaefer today. We say bonjour, Mark.
Bonjour. Bonjour, Karine.
Bonjour. Very happy to welcome you today. We're having tons of things to talk about. I'm very excited about this. I made a little video that I shared, so I assume people in France and the audience know already who you are. But just to say one thing about you, if I may try to make this exercise, you're known, okay, to have predicted some of the most important digital marketing trends for the past, let's say, 10 years at least, to say the least. And this is unbelievable. You wrote a book on influencer marketing way ahead of time, like 2 years before the expression was even ranked in Google. You predicted the trend of the booming of Instagram. You explain in detail all the economics behind content marketing. And of course, last and not least, you predicted the big booming of personal branding today. So my first question to you is, how do you do this? I want to know.
Well, it took me a long time to figure out what I was good at. When I was a little boy, I wanted to be an astronaut, and that didn't work out. And then sort of sometime in my early 30s, I realized I was good at seeing how trends come together. A lot of people in business, they might see a trend and sort of become obsessed with an idea that's happening now. But what I've always been able to do is see, like, what are the implications if we see these things starting to happen? What's next? Let's think a step ahead. So I don't know. I can do that.
That's in a way that's really, really impressive. And I have to say, because now I want us to go deeper into your last three book. I'm just giving a very little introduction about this. Your very last book is called Cumulative Advantage. And to me, it's a masterpiece. Okay.
Oh.
But I will explain why. This book, to me, is the third one of three books. The first one on personal branding, Known. The second one, The Marketing Rebellion. And the third one, Cumulative Advantage. And those three, I've seen them like the recipe for success. How do you build success? And which is brilliant is that it can be applied both in personal lives and, of course, in marketing. And I think it's always related to personal branding in a way. I'm just going to explain very quickly why, and then we'll go deeper into the first one. I think Marketing Rebellion Known provide us with first the goal that so many people have today. How do I become famous? How do I become known? How do I build my personal brand? It's coming like an obsession for everyone, even if people don't really admit it. Marketing Rebellion, and so of course Known is providing us with the methodology for that. The Marketing Rebellion is providing us with the context in which we're gonna have to play. In a way, it's sort of the stadium, with the rules of the game that we need to understand to build this brand. And Cumulative Advantage, to me, it's all the psychology, the mindset that we need to have in order to be able to build a brand, build a personal brand, be successful in marketing, and be successful in our lives. So I hope I wrapped this all up pretty accurately. And of course, I'd like to start by the context of Marketing Rebellion. And I want to hear you about one thing. It seems that there is a major understanding in the marketing area today. There is a huge gap between what we think we're doing as marketer and what the customer thinks or have opinion on what we're doing. You have an awesome way to do it. You say there is the difference between what they think marketing is and what marketing is really is in current life. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to mention that I have a lot of really provocative ideas in the book, and it's not just my opinion of the world. This is all backed up by research. And the main theme, I think, of the book is that marketing really is no longer in control of the marketing, that 2/3 of our marketing is occurring without us, that our customers are our marketers. So this requires a pretty radical change in an approach and a mindset to marketing, to think about, well, look, how do we earn our way into that 2/3? If this is where the sales is occurring, that's where we want to be, but we can't buy our way in anymore like we've done for decades. What does marketing really mean today? I mean, it's an important question. Now, you're asking me about sort of this gap between what we think we're doing and what we're really doing. And you would expect, if you did a survey and you asked businesses, how are you doing on your marketing? They'd say, oh, we're doing pretty good. And then if you ask consumers, they'd say, well, maybe not so good. You'd expect there'd be a difference. But the research shows really across the world that marketing is sort of asleep right now. Businesses are asleep. They've been working on, we've got to do a little bit better on our content and our SEO and our Facebook ads, and we're going to do a little bit better than last year. But meanwhile, while we've been working on these incremental improvements, the customers have moved over here. They've the accumulated knowledge of the human race in the palm of their hands, and they expect something more from us. They don't need to be manipulated by companies anymore. They're making pretty good decisions on their own. And so marketing today, I think, is not about manipulating people. It's about coming alongside people at their point of need and saying, how can we help you today? How can we help you make money, save money, have a happier life, have a healthier life, be more entertained today, or however we need to connect to the customers. But that's really where the customers expect us to be today.
And so in the book, you have an amazing analogy about an island. I thought it was amazing, and most of all, it was in Greece. So it was in Greece that you had this idea. So it was doubly amazing. Yeah. So I think it's the start of many of the reasoning that you have behind the book. Can you tell us a little bit explain a little bit why you have noticed this and how it can apply to marketing today and the new way of doing marketing?
Well, the analogy that I used in the book is a few years ago, I had the most amazing experience cruising around the Greek islands, the Cycladic islands. And these islands are very close together. You can be on one island and literally see another island. But when you go on each island, they're so different. They have their own culture, their own local foods that they love, their own arts and crafts. It's like amazing that they're so close together, but they have their own community bonds. Now, this is really how we need to look at consumers today. So back when I was a young guy growing up in business, we just thought about mass broadcasting, right? We had an ad, or we had a PR thing, and we had a billboard on a road someplace, and an ad in a magazine or something. And we just hoped that it hit the right people. Now, today, because of the internet, people can come together on like-minded islands. And one of the problems I see in marketing today is, in fact, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. They're like building this new community site. And this almost always fails because we spend all this time dragging people to our site and dragging people to our content. And look, we're creating this thing where you can connect to us and meet all these people. But you know what? They're already doing that. They're doing it on Facebook. They're doing it on LinkedIn. They're doing it on Twitter chats. They're doing it on YouTube. They're doing it on Reddit. They're already in their own communities. There's a community for everything. There are communities for dog groomers. There are communities for construction people. There are communities for educators. And this is where people go and they share ideas. And guess what? That's where the marketing is taking place. So a new way to think about things is, instead of like spending all our energy dragging people to where we are, why don't we just fish where the fish are, right? Go where they're already connected, and then be generous, be helpful, build our brand in that community, and hopefully, we'll connect and be welcome there. And so it's another way, a different way to think about marketing today, but it's important because we can't ignore these changes. This is the way the world works. We can't hold on to what we wish it would be. We need to wake up. Most marketing is asleep. We need to wake up and see, this is the way the world really is. How do we, look, we built this marketing department 10 years ago for social media. It worked really great, but it doesn't work really great now, because what worked 10 years ago doesn't work today. It's time to wake up.
So I love that. What I like the most in all of your books is that you're not like, I wouldn't say other people, but anyway, you're not guessing anything. Everything you're saying is the result of tremendous research and a lot of work. I know on each book you almost worked 2 years before putting out a book. And I'm curious to know, according to you, what are the main drivers, the main ideas that should drive marketing leadership today? You give the answer in the book, of course. There is 5 main things, but I wish you to just list them and give us a little bit of insight on each of them. I'm sorry if it has to be a summary.
Well, I think I want to boil it down to one thing, because we're in a historical moment in time in our lives and with our businesses, and everything is being changed by this pandemic, right? And the other day there was someone on LinkedIn, and they posted this research from 2019 and said, look at this research from 2019. This is what we need to do based on this research. And I wrote a comment and I said, I don't think we can believe anything from 2019 or 2018 or 2017. Everything has changed. So the number one, I think, goal and perspective in marketing today has to be really to be humble, to just, we need to reconnect with customers and get out there and watch what they're doing and listen to what they're doing, because they have been changed in millions of ways, both large and small. I wrote a blog post, Karine, recently that said we are entering the era of unintended consequences. And what I mean by that is that when we went into the pandemic, we guessed wrong on almost everything. One of my favorite stories is here in America, we've got this huge store called Home Depot. And this is where people can go to get things to fix up their home. It could be tools or wood or paint or whatever. Well, when the pandemic began, this huge multi-billion-dollar company thought, oh my gosh, it's a pandemic. We're going to enter a recession. Let's start taking down our stock, laying off employees, and closing stores. We entered a building boom in America. There are shortages of wood and paint and bricks and labor. Nobody could go on vacation, so everybody said, we're stuck at home. Let's make our houses nicer. We guessed wrong on everything.
That's true. That's so true.
We guessed wrong on everything. Who would have guessed that we would have shortages of acne cream, because when we wear masks all day, our faces are breaking out, right? No one could really guess these things. And here's the key idea. As we come out of this period, we're going to guess wrong on everything again, because we cannot even imagine how the world is going to be different. And let me give you one quick example. One of the things they found in China, as China came out of their very strict lockdowns, is that children, teenagers, had taken over the e-commerce function for their families. Because, of course, everybody knows now you got to buy everything online because we can't go out to the stores. And what the teenager said was, we know how to do this. Let us do it. We'll take care of you, Grandma. Now, that is a really interesting trend, right? Who's the real consumer here? And if we're trying to sell something to senior citizens, who's the decision maker? We don't know. We really don't know. What is our world going to look like? What are the long-term implications for little children today who are growing up in a world where they're not being picked up by people? They can't even see people's faces because everywhere they go, everybody's wearing masks. They can't play with any children. Every time they run over to start playing with other children, they're picked up and carried away. How's that going to show up 10 or 15 years from now?
Mm.
We don't know. We really don't know. My friend Martin Lindstrom says we're conditioning an entire generation to have post-traumatic stress disorder. This is something that occurs to enlisted people when they're in a war, right? Mm-hmm. He's saying we're in a war. We're afraid every day. We're grieving every day. We're being rewired. So this is a time really to just be calm, stay centered, and really pay close attention to what's going on, because lots of things are going to be changing.
This is very interesting. You really think there is no way, precisely considering the fact that we're sort of going out of this pandemic, there's no way to anticipate the second stage, I would say the second phase. I heard recently a podcast, your podcast, and you were having this very interesting conversation about L'Oreal putting out there, for makeup for women, mixing of AR and gamification to enable women just to try what they want to buy. Because even if you're going in shops, Brooke said that, even if you're taking the risk with a mask to going into the shop, you were not even allowed to touch the products before you're buying it. So in a way, some companies try to anticipate what's going to happen.
I mean, there's obvious trends. I mean, there's obvious things. So there's obvious trends about remote work. Mm. Okay. I mean, that's easy to see. There's obvious trends about remote learning. There's obvious trends about new concerns about safety. We're kind of going to be in a no touch kind of economy. I think maybe forever. What I'm reading now is that a lot of people are projecting is that the coronavirus is going to be with us always, sort of like the flu, and we're going to have to keep adjusting. And so that could be one of the permanent ways that the world is changing, is that, we don't want to get our money from an ATM anymore because we don't want to touch the keys, so everything, I think the idea of safety, security, comfort, touchless, that's a big trend. Who knows what's going to snap back and what's going to, stay the same. But I know a lot of people, their lifestyle has changed in many ways. Here's another one that's going to be really interesting to see. Since people have been spending so much time at home, they've been putting a lot of money into making their home experience better. So they've been buying bigger TVs with big sound systems and swimming pools and recreation rooms. And, they've just spent all the money on these things. And, my wife said to me the other day, why would we ever go to a movie?
No, but that's so true.
Why would we ever go now? Before the pandemic, my wife and I went to a movie at least once a month. You could go out, you have dinner. We have a theater here that plays sort of like kind of like artistic movies that they win at film festivals, but they're not big blockbusters. So it's a little theater and it's a nice experience. But now, since the pandemic, before the pandemic, we were subscribed to Netflix. Now we're also subscribed to Hulu. We're also subscribed to Disney Plus. We have so much amazing content. We're literally overwhelmed. There's just too much to see and watch, right? It's like, well, we're already paying for this. Why would we go to a movie and have someone chomping popcorn behind us?
That might sneeze
and then they're going to be sneezing on us.
Yeah.
Why would we ever do that again? So, we just don't know. We just don't. We don't know what's going to snap back. But we really have to pay attention right now. I think the big buzzword for marketing is humility. Be humble.
Okay. We're not going to forget this one. Last question about Marketing Rebellion. Following this idea that the customer is the marketer, you go deep into the new sort of marketing techniques, even if I'm not crazy about the words. And of course, you go through customer experience and word of mouth marketing, content marketing, peer observations, and all those things. And of course, you're getting deep into influencer marketing. And my first question on that, just as an introduction, is how do you make the difference between word of mouth marketing and influencer marketing? Because I know in France, lots of people are using one word to describe the second one. So I'm curious.
That's a very, very important question. I'm glad you asked that because there is a lot of confusion about that. They are distinctly different, and here's how they're different. When you employ influencer marketing, you know who the influencers are. When you do word of mouth marketing, you don't. So let me explain what I mean. So influencer marketing, there are really three different kinds of influencers. One, which is, a lot of people know, it would be like a celebrity. So this would be a big sports star, a movie star, something like that. And, Nicki Minaj announced she's got a new album coming out, and she posted photographs on the web this week, and she's wearing pink Crocs. Now, for those of you in France and around the world, you may not know what Crocs are. They're like these cheap rubber shoe, right? Guess what? They're sold out. One photograph on the internet, pink Crocs sold out, period, everywhere, right? That's celebrity. Now, what a lot of people consider influence marketing would be people like me. We create our authority through content. I blog, I do podcasts. Some people do videos or Instagram or live streaming. They've built an audience who trusts them about automotive, fashion, design, home improvement, whatever. So it makes sense for brands to connect with these trusted authorities and make sure that these influencers, these content creators, know these stories. Now, below that would be what I call advocates. These are people, smaller audiences, maybe less than 10,000 or 5,000, and they just love things. They just love Ralph Lauren. They love L'Oreal. And so just, all I want to do is talk about L'Oreal. So what L'Oreal would need to do is just find out who these people are and say, we love you. We're going to send you some free stuff. We're going to send you a L'Oreal shirt or whatever, right? So those are really, but you know who they are because they're so public. Now, the research shows that 10% of every population in every culture are super sharers. These are people who love to tell stories. When they find something new, they can't wait to tell their friends. My wife is like that. If she's standing in line at the store, she'll be telling whoever it is about a new bargain that she found, a new restaurant that she found, a new TV show that she loves. She's talking all the time about her favorite products, her favorite brands, her favorite everything. She can't wait, right? I'm not like that, but she's like that. She's in this 10%. Now, word of mouth marketing is you put those stories out there. You put out stories that are authentic and interesting and relevant, and those influencers will find you. And if you do your job correctly, they'll start talking about you because that's what they do. That's what they, that's what they love to do. So that's the difference between influence marketing. You know who they are. Word of mouth marketing, you don't know who they are, but you've got a good story to tell, and those people will find you.
Thank you for those precision. I don't think many people saw things this way. That was extremely valuable. I a little bit frustrated because one of my question, the only one question I could ask only to Mark Schaefer, you were the only one able to answer that. It was what is an influencer? So okay, you gave us an answer about this. To prepare this interview, I asked many people what were their main issue in the audience regarding the marketing. Of course, lots of people talked about influencer marketing, especially brands. And one of the questions they have really, and they're struggling with this, is how do we reinstate trust from customers to a brand? And how do we pick the right influencer to fix this issue? So one of the question is influencer marketing is one way to reinstate trust between a brand and its customer, or it's not really working this way?
Well, so there are problems in every part of marketing. There is a lot of corruption with ad fraud. There's a lot of corruption in SEO. And there's problems everywhere. And there's problems in influence marketing too. But the problem is that the stories that we hear about influence marketing are the bad ones, right? Influencers do something stupid. And so now, influence marketing, that's really stupid. We're going to make fun of that. But the fact of the matter is, people don't see ads like they used to. They avoid them. They skip them. They block them. They're spending a lot of money to stream content so they don't have to see ads on video, audio, podcasts, Spotify, right? They never hear ads. So how are we going to get our story out? Influence marketing works, and it's just starting. It's going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, around trust, two big ideas. Number one of the big problems with influence marketing is when a company said, who should we work with? They look at the size of their audience and they look at their engagement and they said, let's choose this person. But here's the problem. That person, if they're representing your brand, they're going to be the best known person maybe in your company. Now, would you hire somebody in your company just based on how big their audience is? You would do an interview with them. What do they stand for? What do they believe in? What's their track record? What are their hopes? What are their dreams? That's what you want to know when you hire an employee. So when bad things happen in influence marketing, it's not necessarily the influencer's fault. Maybe the company didn't do a good job hiring their influencers. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that as influence marketing is maturing, the best influencers, the best authority break the trust with their audience. They're business people. They know what they need to do. And so the best influencers will rise to the top. they are going to be people that you trust because they know if I ever do something and my audience doesn't trust me anymore, their career is over. So trust is everything. So number one, the company has to take responsibility for who they're hiring. And number two, over time, the influencers who game the system and can't be trusted, they'll fall away.
So it means that the main criteria for a brand to pick a right influencer is definitely not numbers. It's what? Going deep into their content and analyzes what they're writing about, what they're sharing about, what they're thinking about, which type of opinion they might have, sometimes even on something that is not straightly related to what they're an expert for. I mean, for example, why not their position in terms of environmental or things like
Right.
that? Should we do this work before hiring and picking the right
Yes,
influencer?
absolutely. And this is going to be sort of a radical concept for people to hear. But I actually think engagement in most cases is a very poor metric. And let me just give it for a lot of reasons, but just let me give you one example. So a lot of people view me as an influencer because I've created content about marketing and technology and how this intersects with humanity for many, many years. I've been hired by Dell and Microsoft and many other companies. Now, I actually have very low engagement.
No, that's not true.
No, I really do. I have very, very low engagement. And in fact, my engagement, let's say on my blog, has been dropping year by year by year. Now, here's the weird thing. The subscribers to my blog have been going up, 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 up. My content, I think, is better than ever. So my subscribers are going up. My content, I think, is better than ever. How can engagement be going down? Here's why. Here's the biggest reason. You can draw exactly a parallel line with engagement going down and the use of mobile devices going up. It's a pain to leave comments on a smartphone, right? When people were using a computer or a laptop, they just type in whatever they want to say.
That
But
is
now
so
they're
true.
just scrolling through, right? And they may like something, but it's hard. It's a pain to leave comments. So am I less effective? No, I'm more effective. And let me tell you something else. 95% of the people who hire me, I've never heard of before. They don't engage with me, but they're reading. I'm influencing them. They're reading my content. They're viewing my content. They're listening to my podcast. They're reading my books. And when it's time to hire a speaker for their conference, they trust me because I've built this relationship with them over many years. When it's time, they need someone to help them with their marketing strategy, they call me. When they need a workshop for their company, they call me. Almost all the time, Karine, I don't even know who this person is. And here's how they start the conversation. Oh, I've been a fan of yours for years, but I've never heard of them. They've never tweeted me. They've never commented on Instagram. They haven't so engagement isn't everything. And engagement can be easily gamed, especially on Instagram. So it's not the most important metric.
I love what you say, and specifically because I hear another things in what you say is that subscription might be the right fit today, the right
Oh,
thing
yeah,
to check, and it's related strictly to the niche we're operating in. No.
exactly. So I gave advice to someone just the other day about how they really need to concentrate on their email subscriptions, right? Because those are here's what this means. When someone subscribes to your email, your blog, your video, here's what they're saying. It's okay for you to market to me. I believe in you. You're creating really great content and I don't want to miss it. And I want to develop an emotional connection to you because I like what you're doing. I believe what you're doing. And, if I have an opportunity to meet you someday at a conference or even hire you someday, boy, I'm going to do it because I'm a fan, because I subscribe. I don't want to miss what you do. What's great marketing? What's great branding? It's building an emotional connection between what you do and your audience or your customers. We have this amazing opportunity. We could never think about the days before the internet and social media. We just had to blast out messages and hoped that it hit somewhere. And now our customers, we can see them. We can see their names and their emails, and they're saying, I'm going to subscribe to you. I'm opting in to your marketing. I don't want to miss it. And oh, by the way, if you do a really good job, I'm going to share it with others. Consumer advocacy, third-party advocacy, right, is better than any advertising you could ever do. So we need to look at this world of social media and content in a much, much different way. And believe me, that's influence too, right? I think social sharing is probably the most important measurement in digital marketing other than conversions. Because when people share your content, they're saying, I believe in this person and I want you to believe in them too. I love this company and look at what they're doing. I'm sharing this. I want you to love it. This is important to me. That's a big deal, right? And if you look at that as a measurement, it also drives the right behavior in a marketing department. What would it take to get our customers to share our stories, our content? Well, number one, we've got to be creating really great content. Should a marketing department be doing that? Yes. We need to show up. We can't just create content and let it sit out there. We kind of need to engage with people. We need to know, we're here, we're connected to you. Should a marketing department be doing that? Absolutely. We need to know who is sharing our content by name. These are the ones creating the most value for our whole digital marketing department, right? The economic value of content that's not seen and shared is zero. These people are sharing our content. We need to treat them like they're really special. We need to involve them. We need to send them things. We need to make them part of everything we do, right? In my content code book, I call this the alpha audience. They are your most important customers. And here's a challenge I'll put out there for everyone listening and watching. Do you know by name who is sharing your content? Because it's not millions of people. It's not thousands of people. It's probably dozens of people. And you really need to know who they are.
Those can make the whole difference.
Yeah, they're everything.
This is big. Talking about, influencer marketing, so many people wants to become influencer today. And I sort of connected to the fact that they want to build their personal brand. So one common line I've seen with all those 3 books is really how you define your niche. You would call it in a certain way in your book, known, and you would call it a word that I really love in Cumulative Advantage is the seam, finding your seam.
Right.
Can you try to, I know, of course, you can connect those two and tell us a little bit more about this, please?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked me that question because the books really do kind of go together. Known is talking about how do you have the reputation and the authority and the presence to have the best opportunity to get your job done, whatever that is. Do you want to be an authority? Do you want to build a new business? Do you want to start a speaking career? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to raise money for a nonprofit? If you're known, you
You can.
you've got an advantage, right?
Mm.
Now, in cumulative advantage, I talk about momentum. All right, if we're doing this good work and we kind of feel like we're stuck, how do you get to this next place? And what I talk about in this book is that you always have to be aware of how the world is changing and how do you apply your advantages, your competencies, your skills to how the world is changing. Let me give you a little example that I think will help people understand this. When the pandemic hit last year, I got sick. I had the coronavirus. I was out for almost a month. And during this same time, my business crashed. I was a professional speaker without an audience. I was a marketing consultant. All my clients said, we got to go save our businesses right now. Even my college classes were canceled. And I was sort of disoriented. Like, what do I do? And what's my meaning right now? So my core competency is really, I'm a teacher. Right? Whether I speak or I blog or I write a book, I'm teaching people. I'm taking very complicated ideas and distilling it into ways that people can understand and process. And I realized I'm still a teacher, but the world needs me to teach something else right now. So a seam is when there's a fracture in the status quo, when there's this shift. And we have the biggest fracture in the status quo in the history of the human race. It's called a pandemic, right? So I stopped everything I was blogging about. And I started thinking, what do people need? What do people need me to teach right now? We need to learn about how do we deal with anxiety? How do we deal with this disorientation? How do we stay positive in a time like this? How do we deal with the uncertainty of not knowing when this is going to end or what's going to be next? So that's what I started a blog about. The traffic to my blog doubled. And some people said, this is the best content I've ever seen during this terrible time. I took all those blog posts and weaved them into an ebook called Fight to the Other Side. Gave it away on my website, didn't even ask for an email address, just take it. The last page of the ebook said, if you love this ebook, you're going to love my talk. If you need someone to come in for 15 or 30 minutes to your boring Zoom meeting and inspire your leadership, call me up. By July, I was having a record month. I went from 0 to a record month because I found this seam. Now, here's an important idea. Number one, I had this idea about applying my core competencies to this opportunity, and I pursued it. I didn't just let it sit. I pursued it. The other important idea, this isn't going to last forever. Strategy today is like, what is happening now? And you go fast, you give it everything you've got, you take it as far as you can go. People are not going to want Fight to the Other Side speeches forever. It's already winding down. That's okay. I didn't mean for it to last forever, but I found a seam and I went through that seam as long as I could. And now I'm looking for new seams, right? That's really what strategy is about today.
What I loved, one of the example you gave in the book that I really found wonderful was the Nike example. And what I like it specifically is because it really shows us that at the end of the day, no matter where you're coming from, which diploma you can get, the money you can have, the area where you were born in, it at the end of the day doesn't count.
Doesn't matter.
I wish to explain the Tim Ferriss comparison and the Oprah thing. That was fantastic. Unfortunately, I don't think many people know Tim Ferriss in France. Oprah Winfrey probably more, but the Nike example was great, and the way you just get deeper into it to put this into a marketing class was outstanding. So just if you can come back just a little bit on the Nike example.
Well, one of the I think cumulative advantage, both known and cumulative advantage, are really books of hope, I think. And
For sure.
it's rational and it's all based on research, but it also shows that anybody can do this. You don't need a special education. You don't need millions of dollars in the bank. If you've got a keyboard and a Wi-Fi connection, you can create an impact on this world. It's a magical time. It's an amazing opportunity. And the same goes with cumulative advantage and building momentum. Here's the thing that I think is startling to most people. They look at all these successful people and all these successful businesses, and they say, oh my gosh, those people, they must have always been experts. They must have always been rich. Here's the dirty little secret. It almost always starts with something random, right? Now, the Nike example you mentioned a couple times. The story in the book is how there was a track coach, and back in the day, young athletes, when they were running track, they had metal spikes on the bottom of their shoes. Very dangerous. He was sitting at breakfast one morning, and his wife was making waffles. And she peeled the waffle off this waffle iron, and he looked at that. And without saying a word, he ran back to the high school chemistry lab, got latex, this rubber, poured it in the waffle iron, let it set, peeled it up, and said, that could be the bottom of a track shoe. And that started Nike. And by the way, that rusty old waffle iron is on display in a glass case, like a museum piece at Nike headquarters. Like this is like, yeah, it's unbelievable. But that's Nike is one of the most famous, successful, and profitable brands in the world. Literally, that's how it started. Starbucks. I mentioned Home Depot. All these big companies. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't a strategy. It was listening to someone, meeting someone, having a conversation, reading a book, just having a new idea, and most importantly, pursuing it.
So pursuing it, for sure. Consistency, great. That's a common word. That's, of course, because you can have the best idea. We're going to check everything at the end line in a way. In the book, you're also talking about the second main step, I would say the third one, the sonic boom.
Yes.
I like it very much because it tends to explain, it's explaining what could be considered as the buzz. Everything is looking for that today.
Right.
How do I get my idea out there and make a big boom out of this? And it explains it very well.
If you're a marketing geek like me, this is certainly one of the most fun chapters of cumulative advantage, because it looks at how these stories spread, in a new way. And by the way, there's a connection between working on your personal brand and your ability to create a sonic boom. So let me explain sort of how that works. Again, I'll use myself as an example. So when I launched Marketing Rebellion and Cumulative Advantage and these books that you've talked about and you've been so very kind to talk about, is I went out to famous people in our industry, and I said, I've got this new book, and I sent them a little gift, and I wrote a handwritten note, and I said, I think you're going to love this book. It would really be great if you could help spread the word. Now, this was not a year-long rollout. It wasn't a 2-year plan. This was 2 weeks. That's the sonic boom. You want everything to happen big, 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 in 2 weeks. Now, here's how personal brand and sonic boom are connected. I've been working on my personal brand for like 12 years. So I'm known, and a lot of important people know me. So I can go out to these important people and said, "You're my friend. Can you help me?" If I was just starting out 12 years ago, I don't have those connections. I'm not known. I don't have the reputation. I haven't earned the right to go to these famous people and say, "Can you help me?" So the more you're known, the bigger the sonic boom. If you're just starting out, maybe you can create a sonic whisper. But as you keep working, and you mentioned a very important word, Kareem, consistency, right? I did a consulting call a few months ago, and this fellow said, "Blogging doesn't work." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, 5 years ago, I wrote 3 blog posts and nothing happened." Well, nothing will happen, right? The idea of creating content and building a personal brand means that you're building a long-term relationship of trust. You're trying to become a habit. A while ago, a woman wrote me a lovely email, and she said, "You are part of my life. I start my morning with you. I get a cup of coffee, I open up my email, and I want to read, what did Mark Schaefer write for me today?" I only earned that because I blogged 650 weeks in a row without missing. I've had a podcast for 9 years, never missed an episode, right? Didn't miss it when I was sick, didn't miss it when I was on vacation, didn't miss it for anything. Because here's the thing that always goes through my mind with every piece of content I create: I will never let you down. If you read my blog, if you read my book, if you listen to my podcast, it will be worth your time. You will learn something. It will be interesting. It might even be fun, but I will never let you down. And that's how you build trust. That's how you build an audience. That's how you build your personal brand. And you've got to do it every single week, every single week. And it takes work, and it takes determination. It takes grit. It's not easy, but it works.
So it's one question lots of people might think, okay, you do this now, you had this great idea when your book went out to um, ask a favor to your friend and say, I think you're going to like this, so please share it. How are we supposed to trigger that if we're not having 12 years of blogging behind us? And if though we're like a year ahead, we wrote some good stuff, and at some point I think we want to continue to write for the amplifier in a way. So is it
Very good point.
is it doable within a year or so of blogging, or how
Yes,
could we maintain hope?
absolutely. Absolutely it is. And let me tell you a story that really shows how it works. So when I wrote Known, I kind of went a little crazy. I interviewed 97 people who are known in their field all around the world. So there were people from education, from finance, from art, from music, from construction. And I interviewed them. How did you do this? What was the process? And what I found is that all of them did the same 4 things to get known. No exceptions. So it kind of provides this clarity. I mean, when I was starting out, it's like, what do I do? Should I be on Facebook? Should I be LinkedIn? Should I create videos? How do I do this? And I stumbled around, and it ends up, I did those same 4 things too. I didn't really think about it that way, but that's how it worked. Now, here's the other thing. For these people who became known, on average, it took them 27 months for their brand to really take off. So kind of like bumble, kind of like bubbled. And then all of a sudden, boom, it started to work. Now, after my book came out, people were telling me 5 months, 6 months after my book came out, they said, "Oh my gosh, Mark, your book changed my life. I followed the book exactly. You would not believe what's happening in my life right now." One lady said, 6 months after I wrote this book, she said, "I just made $1 million off your book." And I'm thinking, oh, I made $4 off of you. You owe me more than $4. And so here's what I was thinking. How is this possible? All these smart, amazing people, on average, it took them 27 months. How is it possible for these people to have so much success in 5 or 6 months? And here's, somebody told me, well, Mark, the reason is the people you interviewed didn't have your book. They didn't know how to do it.
Okay.
They fumbled around just like you. You know what? I was the same way, Karine. It took me probably 3 years for my brand, and I fell into it. You know, it was like trial and error, and eventually I figured out, here's how I do it. So in Known, it's sort of like a shortcut. It's like you don't have to fumble around. Here's exactly how you do it. And by the way, there's lots of exercises in the book so that everybody can figure out, you know, everybody's different. So here's how you figure it out, your unique way to become known. So it doesn't have to take 2 years. You know, it depends on a lot of different things. You know, how hard do you work? Did you pick the right scene? I mean, there's a lot of variables, but the process on how to do it is pretty clear. And being consistent is a big part of it, by the way.
So just, even if everybody's going to buy these books for sure, tell us just about the 4th thing that as those people are did very, very, very quickly, just for them to have, at least to leave with something like more, you know, I have hope now I'm going to start this right now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, really, I just want to emphasize it again. And there's lots of inspiring stories in this book with people who like started with nothing.
Michael Centeno, I made a case study about this also.
Yeah.
I think it was.
And by the way, in the first chapter of the book, I was one of those people. You know, I tell a story at the beginning of the book, you know, a story I've never told to anyone before, really, that about, you know, I started really working on this. I was at the lowest point in my life. And the reason I told that story was I didn't want people to think that I'm on top of a mountain. Oh, look at me. This is how you do it. I wanted to say, look where you are right now. Wherever you are right now, I was below that. It was sort of a literary way to put my arm around the person and say, let's go. We can do this, right? And there are lots of examples in the book where there was a guy in England. He became an amazing authority around nutrition and fitness. He was homeless. He was basically homeless. And now he's a millionaire, right? But he did the same 4 things. Here are the 4 things very quickly.
Very, very quickly. We need to finish this. Yeah.
You've got to be clear on what you want to be known for, right? And there's exercises to help you get clear about that. So that's kind of your story. Then you have to think about, well, where should I tell this story? Is there a place I can tell this story that's maybe different from how other people do it? All right. Now, how do I tell the story? And really, there's only 4 choices. It's got to be written, audio, video, or visual. That's it. It's not overwhelming. It's not complicated. You don't have to sort through, Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. Basically, you just make a choice out of one of these 4 things. And then the final thing is, we sort of hinted at this earlier, is how do you build an audience that helps make your dreams come true? That is different than a social media audience, right? This is about an actionable audience, people who actually hire you or buy something from you, right? It's not just a social media audience. It takes a little bit more effort and strategy. So those are the 4 things.
That's amazing. That was really Wow, we kind of went of on all the subject and matter topics I wanted to talk to you about. Would you come back another time, maybe to go deeper into one of the mentioned
Yeah,
books or whatever?
absolutely. We're just getting started.
Okay, I like that. I
You know,
like.
this is the most, this is the most fun time ever to be in marketing, because there's just so much going on.
Yeah,
It's a difficult time to be in marketing, but it's really there's a lot of fun, and it's an exciting time too. So I'd be happy to come back anytime and continue our conversation.
you're amazing. Thank you. Just to conclude everything, I wanted to tell you thank you very much, especially because I tend to think, but I never qualified it this way, that marketing is everywhere.
Hmm.
It's truly everywhere. And reading those three books, especially the last one, marketing is also behind any personal success that people can have, not only in business. And that's a tremendous, tremendous, to me, it makes the whole difference. So it makes everything credible and everything doable. And that's what is, I think, that's why it's a book of hope, definitely.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, and thank you
Thank
so
you
much
very
for
much,
your
Mark.
support. And everyone can find me at businessesgrow.com, and you can find my blog. We talked about my blog and my podcast and my books, and everything's right there at businessesgrow.com.
Don't worry, everything's going to be translated into French. Every single thing we've talked about, for sure. Nobody's going to miss anything of this one. Thank you so much. Have a great day and see you very soon.